Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Welcome into the box seats here on latenightsportsradio.com with Alex B. Smith and Bob Sullivan. Alex, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. I had a nice Thanksgiving. I did not eat one single item of actual Thanksgiving food. I ordered pizza the day before Thanksgiving and had leftovers for a couple of days, and then went on with my regular weekend food consumption of whatever. But didn't do any Thanksgiving stuff. Just worked. Had a pretty productive and profitable Thanksgiving weekend. Some great games of football and college basketball has been treating me well too. So I've been doing pretty well. How about yourself, Bob? How was your holiday weekend?
Thanksgiving was good. Drank a little more wine than I've drank the rest of the year, but
Nice.
Red and white wine, which I don't know. Somebody said that I'm not a wine drinker, and I took that as a challenge, and it turned into a disaster. So, but we, Thursday was fun watching some football. By Sunday, you're just sick of. See, that's the problem. They should have all the games. That's how you build an extra week of rest or an extra bye week into the season for all these teams. Have everybody play on Thanksgiving because everybody's sick of football by Sunday. You got Thursday with 3 games. You got Friday with some pretty good rivalry games. Saturday with some pretty good rivalry games in college football. You're just sick of it by Sunday. And then by Monday, who's going to watch Monday Night Football? I didn't watch any football after Saturday.
No, I agree with you on that. It's actually funny. I wasn't feeling well on Sunday, so the 2 games I had money on with the Falcons and the Ravens, I didn't get to watch those at all. I was actually in and out of sleep. But I agree with you. I don't know if all the games should be on Thanksgiving. I like having a couple of games on Thanksgiving, and obviously you want to have players with their families if possible. But I think it would be kind of cool if maybe next year we see them do what they're going to do coming up on Christmas. Christmas Eve, we're going to see all the games played on that Saturday. And Christmas Day, Sunday, there will be no games. And there will be 2 games, if I'm not mistaken, on Christmas, on the Monday night, day after Christmas, Boxing Day. So I think that would be kind of a cool concept to have maybe 2 games on Thanksgiving and maybe have the rest of the games on Black Friday. Or that Saturday, maybe have college football be Thursday and Friday, and have the football be on Saturday, and this kind of eliminate Sunday. I think that would be an interesting concept.
Well, before we get into betting, we did want to talk about one thing. And Alex, it was I did see the tweets from Sarah Spain. I did not listen to get a chance to listen to the podcast, but there was something you wanted to get in here about Sarah Spain and kind of sexism in sports type of thing.
Well, yeah, I was listening to way in breaking down games throughout the day. I get to listen to a lot of different shows and podcast stuff. And Sarah Spain, who does tremendous work at ESPN, and big Chicago sports fan, and definitely worth following at Sarah Spain on Twitter. She's got a podcast on ESPN called That's What She Said. And she's been very outspoken, and we've seen her in different videos and so forth talking about the ongoing issue with sexism in sports and how women just treated unfairly, not just as far as with Title IX and breaking down the different things with the scandals such as Baylor and so forth, but even amongst women working in sports, especially in the journalism field. And so she had a really interesting podcast. Everybody should really check this out. Talking about with her and a bunch of other different colleagues of hers at ESPN and other outlets that were talking about sharing some of their it was just hard to listen to in a sense, some of the stories that they had to deal with, the crap they had to deal with going through breaking into the industry. And one of the points that I thought was very poignant, and it's something I've always talked about on the opposite end of the spectrum. She talked about how a lot of people feel that women get the jobs that they have in sports, be it in the booth or on the field or in whatever capacity. And there's people say that they shouldn't have these positions because they never played the game. And it's so unfair to say that. Granted, that we see so many male anchors, male analysts, especially with ESPN, I would like to say in the last several years, where
Chris Carter, Trent Dilfer, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, it goes on. Guys who they played and they aren't good at these jobs at all. And the reason they have the jobs is because they played. So it brought up something that, like I said, on both ends of the spectrum, things that should really be addressed. One, obviously, these are talented, qualified women who know their sports and should have these jobs. But then there's plenty of people, male and female, who have these jobs that strictly just shouldn't have them. And I think we put too much stock into the fact that people play. Another great example, for those who listen, boxing, Roy Jones Jr. With HBO was a guy I watched him call a fight about a week ago. Did a terrible job of breaking down some of the fights the last couple of fights that I've seen him do, and it's just super unfair to have, like I said, people who are qualified being reprimanded or chastised in social media because they weren't part of that sport. But then you have people who were part of the sport and do a terrible job, and things just kind of go along, as if it's a rite of passage. I think it's something that should definitely be addressed by all the networks around the country.
Now, let me say this. Okay, Sarah Spain, Kate Fagan, Jackie McMullen. I'm drawing a blank. There are some very talented female, like as far as like Around the Horn, I believe had a day where they had an all female panel for the first time, and I think that was like 3 or 4 months ago, but it was during a time when there wasn't anything going on. It was like during the College World Series when there's no sports going on, or where
nothing major. Yeah.
They did it as a test, and it's like those three, Jackie McMullen, those three stand out in my mind as far as people that have women that have opinions. They're right, and they're ahead of the curve. They're really making strides as far as the glass ceiling, or so to speak, as far as women having opinions in sports. And the sad thing is at times I feel like, not in particular those three, but there's female analysts or female broadcasters that try to be too blunt or too emphatic and try to make too much of a statement because they feel like they have to break through, instead of just being themselves, or just saying what they actually believe, instead of pulling this Stephen A. Smith / Skip Bayless bull crap that turns into, we think they're idiots, which is not the case. It's just, it's the personality they're portraying to get someone
to try and make a statement and become known. Yeah,
because that's how Skip Bayless. Skip and Stephen A. were great writers before they were jackasses on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. But I agree.
They've furthered themselves by being jackasses on TV. And I feel like these women are told what they need to do. And I mean, this whole sexism thing, and these. I mean, it doesn't just limit it to sports. She's only there because she shouldn't be there because she doesn't know the game, or she's only there because she's good looking. It's kind of the same thing. I had a female comedian on my show a couple of years ago now. And before the show, she was talking about stuff that, she hasn't done. Well, who knows? But that she's seen other female comedians have to do, the kissing up to club owners to get spots, to get paid. And it's stuff like that turns women, it's sickening that men are allowed to, be able to, even like look at a Kesha situation with Dr. Luke at what was it, Sony or whatever
Right.
it was, and you know damn well that he was like, well, I can get you farther if you do this for me.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you know, that's as sad as it is. That's the stuff that goes on in the world that's wrong. And there needs to, and I can't believe I'm saying this about Kesha, but it's true. There needs to be more people like Kesha, more
Yeah.
women like Kesha, where they come forward and out these people that are
Yeah.
scumbags, trying to get women furthered in society or in a job by forcing them to either have sex or flirt with them, whatever it may be.
Right.
That's going to be the thing that turns this around, turns the opinion around, is the more people like Kesha that are turning these people in. And by the way, I don't know if this necessarily makes me sexist or what, but well, one, I don't notice it with Doris Burke. Doris Burke brings it to the table every night when she's either, if she's doing sideline or color commentary, I don't notice it. I think she's great at her job. I don't notice it. But Pam Ward, when she's doing play-by-play, I notice, like, okay, I'm listening. Like, I hear a woman. I know that I'm listening to a woman. I start thinking about it. Not negative. I'm just like,
Right.
But then I'm like, you know, she's not. And I just keep telling her, like, okay, she's really not that bad. And I don't think that makes me sexist, but I'm constantly thinking about it while I'm listening to it. Like, she was never on Big 12, and I don't know if it was because she was never on Big 12 games with Nebraska, but she always does that crappy 10 o'clock Big 10 game or 11 our time 10 o'clock game, and I'm just like, whoa, okay. I mean, there's a woman doing play-by-play. It takes like a half to adjust, and then you just don't notice it. But Pam Ward is great at her job, but I do notice it, and I don't know if that. I don't think I'm being sexist about it, but
No.
you notice it.
Right.
And but like if I'm watching Around the Horn and I'm watching like Sarah Spain and Jackie McMullen, I'm not really thinking about what they're that there's two women on this panel or anything. But during a play-by-play, for whatever reason, I think it's just being wired of hearing a man for, I don't know, 20 years of my life before Nebraska joined the Big Ten, of hearing that, I was just, it was just not weird. It was weird to me. I wasn't against it. I don't hate it. I don't think Pam Ward is bad at her job, but I noticed it. Is there anything, like, what does that make me? Does that just make me an idiot?
No, it's your observation, and that's a fine and fair observation to make, and I think that was basically the point of of what the point that Sarah was trying to make in that podcast, is that we judging the everybody's should be on a fair and balanced level, and if there's someone who's doing their job right or wrong, or it's noticeable or whatever, there's some people who do these jobs better than others. You know what I'm saying? And so, but we should judge them based on how well they do their job. It's like how everybody freaked out about Jessica Mendoza calling a baseball game, and it says, okay, well, she's more than qualified. She was Olympic softball player. She has the qualifications, and when you hear her talk on Baseball Tonight, she knows way more, and she's better at her job than I'd say half the guys that are working at ESPN. I've always thought ESPN's baseball coverage personally was abysmal for many years, and it hasn't changed. So I think she's doing a tremendous job, and I think she does a great job in the booth. And obviously, there's a transition that's difficult for anybody, male or female, to make from being an analyst in a studio to calling during a game and picking up the flow of a game. That's something that a lot of people just simply can never get a hold of. And I think she did a tremendous job. The games I did hear her call for ESPN, I think she did a great job, and I didn't understand where any of the ridicule came from. And it's.
I will say this about her. At times she gives. I don't know if this is what she. I'm kind of jury's out on her because in the game I don't watch a lot of baseball, but I will say she does give a 4-year-old type of explanation for certain things. On the caveat being, I've heard the same thing from Tim McCarver when he gives fourth grade explanations of what a hit and run is or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, everybody does it, but I mean, everybody wants to claim that she's the worst, but everybody, I don't think she's great, but I also don't think she's terrible. Because
right. And that's the thing.
There are things that I can see where would piss people off.
Right, but you can find a comparison where she's there's a guy that works with her that's just as bad, but more people are going to jump all over her because she's a woman. That gives her a even lower negative rating, and it's just I didn't want to take up the whole show with it, but it was something that I definitely wanted to point out. And that, like I said, everybody check out the podcast. Follow Sarah Spain on Twitter, and she's got a link there and stuff. And it's definitely something just worth listening to. And it's a dialogue that needs to be brought up more often, and it's being brought to the forefront. And it really just needs, it's one of those things that in 2016, some stuff that we should already have kind of sorted out within our lives and within society that we haven't. And the closer we can get to figuring those things out, the better.
All right. Well, on to the betting, the fun stuff of life.
Yeah.
Okay, well, first off, before we get into some of these picks, what was your opinion on the college football playoff that just came out?
Well, in looking at it, I agree with everything that's listed. Obviously, Michigan has to be on the outside looking in. Ohio State stays in for now, as after winning that game in double overtime. Obviously, Alabama stays pat. Clemson stays pat. And I believe, like I said, I think I said it last week. I said Washington should be that fourth team in. I don't agree with having Washington outside, despite the outcome of the Michigan Ohio State game. So I'm really glad the committee didn't go on and say, oh, because it was such a great game, because we could have easily seen that. Well, these two teams played so well and it went into overtime and it could have gone either way. So now we have to put both of them into the Final Four as of right now. I'm glad the committee made a stance and did not do that. That being said, this is an very interesting scenario because you have 5, 6, and 7 now all Big Ten teams. You got Wisconsin and Penn State basically playing their de facto playoff game. I mean, it's not only the Big Ten championship, but the only way one of those two teams can get a shot into the playoff is by winning this game on Saturday. Here lies in the confusion and the dust that could be kicked up. Do you put in Wisconsin ahead of Michigan and possibly ahead of Washington if they win and Washington loses Friday against Colorado?
Yeah.
Or do you put in same thing with Penn State, and really the same thing also if Washington wins, obviously everything stays pat, but do you move Washington up and now you drop Ohio State? And now you have 4 teams that are in a row, but yet the team that wins the Big Ten is more than likely going to be 2, if not 3 spots behind the 2 teams that were, ranked in the top 4 at one point.
I'm going to interrupt just for a second.
Yeah.
Are we headed for what was it? What was the first year? 2014 of this? Of the college football playoff was 2014.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that year, Baylor. Was Baylor or TCU? One of those 2 teams was either 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Went into championship weekend, right?
Right.
And they wind up being on the outside looking in. I think it was TCU. Are we looking at that with potentially Ohio State, where it's like, oh, let's tease some of these teams, and potentially with a Michigan, there's no way you can put a Michigan in. Like right now, they are ahead of Wisconsin and Penn State, but there's no way that you can put either one of those 2 teams, or that you can't put one of those 2 teams ahead of Michigan if a Washington or a Clemson lose. And I mean, the argument, if you want an 18 playoff, you got to hope Penn State wins. Everybody wins this weekend, including Penn State.
Yeah.
Because then you'll have the argument of, well, okay, Penn State beat Ohio State, and Ohio State can be like, well, Penn State lost to Pittsburgh. Well, so did Clemson. There needs to be a conference champion left out that should be in. Like there needs to be a wild card that is Ohio State that makes it. And I feel like the committee. I think we're heading toward. I don't think Ohio State should be left out, but I think we're heading towards if everybody takes care of business and whoever the Big Ten champion is, I think Ohio State gets left out. As insane as that might sound. Do you agree with that?
I agree. That's what I would do. Ohio State did not put themselves in a position to win their division and play in a conference championship game. I think that should hinder them, like you said, just as much as it hindered TCU and Baylor. And granted, that's a conference issue.
But those two were screwed by their own conference.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That was a conference issue. So the conference, yeah. But so all the more reason if you're going to leave a team out because their conference doesn't have a championship game, and that's something that the programs can't control. Ohio State could have controlled getting into their title game by winning their division. They didn't do that. So that's the way things go. And so at Penn State, they win this game, they go to 11-2, which will all and you're gonna have. Like I said, this just opens up the fact that you have to have 8 teams now in the playoff, because if you look at once again, this is the third week in a row now where you look at the top 8, there's no issue at all. And the top 8, I think now is actually literally, if you were to break it down, 1-8, 2-7, 3-6, 4-5 matchups for the first round of the playoff. I think it's perfectly laid out. These are exactly the 8 teams that would have to be playing each other to decide a national champion.
Don't you feel like if Central Michigan or Western Michigan goes undefeated, they would deserve a shot in that game?
Western Michigan.
Okay. Top 8, and if you're an undefeated non-Power 5, you get a shot.
Yeah, there has to be some dialogue on. Yeah, there has to be a clear dialogue as to if you're a non-Power 5 team, how can you actually break in? There has to be a clear listing of how you can break into the playoff as an undefeated team, because if you go undefeated, we're in an era now where undefeated teams, there's only one left. There's Michigan and Alabama rather. So if you're undefeated this day and era, we're not talking about the old days of the Boise States running through the WAC in the 90s. If you're undefeated at this point, you deserve a shot at a national title. Plain and simple. You go through 12 games without losing, you deserve a shot at a national championship, no matter how strong or weak your program is. So there needs to be clear dialogue within that. I don't think that's going to happen, because ultimately this comes down to dollars and cents. Western Michigan is not going to ever draw the kind of money. Even if Western Michigan and Michigan played in a playoff game, that's still not going to draw nearly as much interest as throwing in a random 2-loss SEC school or a 2-loss Pac-12 school. So we need to have clear dialogue with that. But I do believe if Western Michigan wins Friday, beats Ohio, and they win the MAC, they need to be 9th in the ranking, and they're going to get their New Year's Day bowl game. But they need to be no less than 9th in the ranking from here on out. At the end of the season, they need to be a top 10 team. They deserve that ranking. Yes. PJ Fleck and his program have done a tremendous job. They deserve to be a top 10 ranked team, whether it means they get the game deserving of that spot. But they need to be a top 10 ranked team at the end of the season. And anybody who doesn't rank them that, I say shame on them.
All right. Well, let's get into the lines for the championship weekend / Big 12 last weekend. What was something that caught your eye this weekend and championship weekend?
Well, you talk about this is the last weekend of regular season games for the Big 12 and also the Sun Belt. This is it's kind of funny because the Sun Belt, which of course the Sun Belt gets left in the dust, but I think right now we're looking at a 3-way tie for first place in the Sun Belt. So this is kind of in a way, this is almost their playoff weekend. Granted, all the teams that are going to get bowl games, they're already kind of slated for their spots, and that's another thing to start keeping your eye on with looking forward to the bowl schedules, teams are already accepting their bids into bowl games. Of course, we'll know everything by by Sunday night. But it's important to know if there are teams that are already accepting their bowl bids ahead of time. These games might not mean that much, especially if they have, there's injuries at certain spots or whatever. If they're already in a bowl game, that's it. Then this is a pointless game. So something to make a note of. One game that really caught my eye, and it's a game I played, and it'll be part of my best bets. We kind of get it over early. This will be one of my better bets. But the Baylor West Virginia game is huge. West Virginia is a team that looked good early, and the couple of losses to Oklahoma State really kind of shafted them. They would have had a shot, in my opinion, to crack through and possibly, even though not having their conference title game, I think they would have had a shot at making it into the playoff if they had won both of those games for sure. But they're playing Baylor. Baylor has just completely fallen off the table. They've had issues all year, but now they've been getting blown out and destroyed in some of their last couple of games.
Deservedly.
West Virginia, yeah, deservedly so. And they played West Virginia last year, and Baylor kind of ramped the score and made it pretty ugly against West Virginia last year. So there's some serious revenge here for West Virginia. Not only they just want to go out and play strong. I think they're going to be a team. They're going to be a live team here in this spot, and I think they're going to be a live team as far as bowl games are concerned because they know that they should have played better and that they can play better. I think they're going to be one of those teams that will be more inclined to show their talent at the end of the season in a bowl game with the big TV audience. That being said, I like laying the points here, the 17 and a half with West Virginia against Baylor. I don't think Baylor really cares too much about this game, and I think West Virginia's got a lot more invested, revenge-wise, and just where they are in current form. So that's the biggest thing that caught my eye among some other games we'll talk about.
Anything in particular in the NFL that caught your eye?
The NFL, not so much. Like I said, things are kind of shaking out now where we're seeing we're going to see the tightest lines that we've seen all year, and that's the case. There's one line. Yeah, other than New England. And even that's a fair line. I think 13.5. I think that is the fair that's where my rankings have that game, honestly. New England's at home. The Rams are going through the motions. They've got issues. And they got the rookie quarterback. They got Goff in there. So I feel like there's one game that did stand out as far as the line goes, and that's the Thursday night game between Dallas and Minnesota, which is a game that it was funny. I looked back at my notes at the beginning of right before the season started. I have Dallas and New England in the Super Bowl. I have Dallas beating New England in the Super Bowl, and I had Dallas and Minnesota in the NFC title game. That was granted based on how Minnesota looked in the first 5 weeks of the season. And now here we are where I really thought this game would have opened pick'em at the beginning of the year. If you told me to give a line, Minnesota hosting Dallas the beginning of December, I would have said, regardless of how either one of these two teams, went into form, because no one expected Dallas to be this good.
No.
And no one expected Minnesota to completely fall off halfway through the season. So if you expected them to at least be reasonably, lead within their respective divisions, which I did, I would have had this as a pick'em spot, maybe even Minnesota as a favorite. But looking at how Dallas has gone, they were on a 9-game ATS run until last week, where the Redskins got the backdoor cover in the game on Thanksgiving. I thought for sure this game was going to open Dallas minus 6.5. It opened 3.5, and now we're seeing a little bit of money coming to Minnesota, so it's -3 with heavy juice if you want to play on the Cowboys. I think there's tremendous value in that spot right there with Dallas. I think they're going to continue this run. They know that they have a chance. A couple of things shake out, they can clinch their playoff spot already. And Minnesota's just a team that has fallen from grace. The loss last week to Detroit, I think, has kind of buried them even more. They know that they really don't have a shot at getting a wild card spot, and they certainly don't. They're running out of time as far as grabbing a division spot. And I think the novelty of the new stadium has worn off. I don't think that's going to scare Dallas at all. And I think the Cowboys are a great bet this week in the NFL.
Yeah, and the honeymoon with Sam Bradford, I don't know if it was even a honeymoon. It might have been just like a pre-divorce, post-marriage deal. But I mean, people were turning like I don't really even think Bradford hasn't been great, but I just don't feel like he hasn't been. He's been he's opened himself to a lot of criticism, which he has always done in his career. But
Yeah.
I don't feel like I don't think he's the biggest problem, but I also don't feel like people should be crying about him right now.
No, it's not Bradford's fault. We've seen Bradford dig his own grave in St. Louis for the most part, and even in Philly at times. And that's also with a grain of salt because he's been injured as well. But Bradford's woes now are not all planted on him. Minnesota's offensive line completely fizzled out and stopped giving him any protection. The mash unit at running back of McKinnon and Asiata, they were getting things done in short yardage. They were, working well in the red zone, but they weren't getting any big time numbers. They weren't going to ever give him the kind of distracted protection and secondary option that Adrian Peterson healthy would have given him. Stephon Diggs getting hurt is a huge blow. He was a top receiver. Adam Thielen, one of those guys who he's a good receiver, but he was kind of caught up in the Norv Turner shuffle of he would get a bunch of targets one week and he wouldn't get a lot of targets the next, which was a killer for anybody who had him in fantasy. I know the team I co-owned, we had him for a while, and every time we seemed to play him, he did nothing. Every time we sat him on the bench, he would come up with a touchdown or two. So there's a lot of other convoluted issues going on with Minnesota's offense that has kept them from, that's why they've gone. They've lost 5 of their last 6 straight up and against the spread. And now you look at the defense, the front 7's still strong, but the cluster injuries now in the secondary. Marcus Sherrills, who's not only one of their top corner guys, but he's also their top punt returner, one of the best punt returners in the league. He's injured. Terrence Newman, Captain Munnerlyn, Harrison Smith, all these guys hurt for Minnesota in the secondary. And now you're going up against Dak Prescott, who's been throwing the ball well. You've got Jason Witten, who looks pretty good and it seems to be being healthy. Dez Bryant's getting better and better. Cole Beasley, tons of weapons that open up not only a solid passing game, but now you got Ezekiel Elliott that's going to be running around as well. I really don't see where on earth Minnesota is going to be able to control the pace of this game. And actually now looking at this total of 44, I wouldn't be shocked if Minnesota can get at least a touchdown or two. This game could really sail over because Dallas, we've seen their offense. They have the potential to really turn things up a notch and make this a really ugly game.
Yeah, I'm the Dallas. I feel like they're always they're a safe pick the way they've been playing, and there's no Romo, so you don't have to worry about late game pick or something like that. Last week was a bad situation with the backdoor cover, but is there before we get into our best bets? Is there any value in betting a Chicago, San Francisco, or when there's just dog shit teams, do you just stay away from it?
It's funny because when I looked at this game at the beginning of the year as well, and I said this would be one of the games that the Bears should win. I had the Bears going. I had the Bears going 5-11. No, I had the Bears going 5-11 or 4-12. I knew this would be a down year for the Bears, and it's been a different kind of down year for the Bears, but I knew it was going to be a rough one. And I said this should be a game that no matter what, the Bears should win this game at home late in the year. San Francisco is the worst team in the NFC, even with how bad the Bears have been. And so things have kind of shaken out exactly as I saw it. Bears are a 1-point favorite, and that's, I guess, the generous home field advantage because the Bears don't really have a home field advantage at this point. Soldier Field has not been a kind home for the Bears, especially against the spread in the last couple of years. This is a game I would definitely avoid at this point. There's no way you can go with backing Matt Barkley. Granted, he looked good in the fourth quarter of that game last week, almost made the comeback against Tennessee. But everyone's given up on the Bears. The fans aren't showing up to the games now. Barkley is the quarterback. This is a guy who really doesn't belong in the NFL. He has no one to throw the ball to. San Francisco, they've had some glimpses of times where they've seen like they can figure out how to play football for a quarter, maybe a half within a game. So that gives them some value, but you're only catching a point and a half, and they're on the road. This is a game that you completely want to avoid at this point. Maybe if this were week 16, week 17, the very end of the year, I might look at playing this game over. It's kind of one of those games where you roll the ball out, guys are just playing for jobs. Kind of like how we do in the third or in the fourth week of the preseason. We see, who wants to stick around with that franchise moving forward. So that's the only time you want to look at betting some really bad teams if there's certain edges. But there's no edge in that San Fran Chicago game. It's a game you just want to completely stay away from.
All right. Shall we get into best bets for the week?
Absolutely. Yes.
All righty. Well, let me go with my good bet for the week. I'm going to go New England with all the heat on Jeff Fisher, the story coming out about him being a douche to Eric Dickerson, even though technically Eric Dickerson was a douche first. Yeah. I'm going to say New England covers this 13.5-point spread, especially considering they struggled a little bit last week against the Jets. It's a home game. I think Brady had to answer some stupid questions from Jim Gray this week on Sunday Night Football on the radio. I think he's going to come out a little bit pissed off. I think they steamroll the Rams. I'm taking New England to cover 13.5-point spread. What is your good bet this week?
Jim Gray asking stupid questions?
Yeah, I know. It's on.
That's right? Shocking. Huh. Yeah, but no. Well, yeah. Oh, but my good bet is we'll go to college football. Like I talked about it earlier, Baylor, West Virginia. Like I said, West Virginia. This is a big spot for them. Wrap up the home schedule with a win. Big revenge spot after Baylor, like I said, ran up the score on them last year. Kind of made things look a little dirty. And West Virginia, they've got something to play for. They've got I think they're going to be a little bit motivated. They're going to be fired up, not only in this game but also down the road, whatever bowl game they get. So that's a team that I have heavily circled, and I went on and laid the points. I only see this game going up. I think there's value at 17.5. Open at 16, so you're not getting the absolute best of the number, but I say play it now because by Saturday morning, this Saturday afternoon game, I think it'll be closer around 19.5 or 20, and I still think they get over that number. I think they win this thing by about maybe 4 or 5 touchdowns possibly. I think it could be an absolute rout, especially if Baylor doesn't get off the ground early with their offense. So I say lay the points now with the Mountaineers, catch the value before that number moves.
My better bet was going to be Bama covering 21.5. Actually, I'm seeing it at 24 now. Mm-hmm. I'll still stand by that. Bama has stomped even like a good South Carolina team in a SEC championship game. Bama is just, year after year is just full of robots that do what Nick Saban says. And Florida, although I think they are headed in the right direction with McElwain. Their offense isn't where it needs to be. It's going to get there, and he'll get them there, but not this year. And I think Bama covers 24-point spread. What is your best bet for this week? What is your better bet?
My better bet. Well, I like that. I was say I like that play with Bama because this is one of those games. Bama goes through the motions in the regular season, but the times we see Bama step up, usually at the very beginning of the year when they have their neutral site game against another upper echelon Power 5 opponent, and then it's the SEC title game, and then their bowl games. So this is a spot where, and looking at the total too, the total 40.5. I think Alabama could really rake up and put up 40 on their own.
Yeah. I will say this: the tricky thing with any other team in this situation, you'd be like, oh well, Bama is a guarantee. Win or lose, they're in the college football play. Any other team in that situation, you probably like it, even in Ohio State where it's like, okay, no matter what, they could have a letdown game. I just don't feel like that. I feel like this is a prime spot for Bama to just steamroll a team. When all the when it's like there's no pressure on them and the expectations are off, this is when Nick Saban's going to be an a-hole and be like, well, I don't think our team's playing well at halftime or right now, but that's just me, and they're up by 35.
Right. No, I agree. No, I agree with you on that. And another thing, too, quick note with Florida. I really think Florida, there's a team I'm going to have circled at the end of the year. Malik Zaire, quarterback for Notre Dame, is transferring. That's one of the schools he has on his list. I think Florida, if they pick him up, I think he'll be a great fit for that offense. That might be a team that we could see make a jump, and they could be right back in this spot a year later. So Florida Gators, like you said, they got things going the right path. They get him under center next fall. That could be something to look out for. My better bet, we're going to stick with college football. Talked about the Sun Belt, how things are kind of shaking out there. I'm going to roll with the Idaho Vandals once again. I've been on this team, I think 4 straight weeks now. They've covered 6 in a row. They're an exciting team to watch. They don't play a lot of great defense, but they have some glimpses of decent. They can make a stop every now and then when they feel like it. They've got some really good offense. Matt Linehan, I think I butchered his name. I think Linehan. He's a quarterback that's thrown for a ton of yards in his career. Played with some really bad teams, but now he's got some decent receivers. He's got a solid running game around him now. And he's a guy who could get a look. I don't know if he'll get drafted in the NFL necessarily, but he might be a guy who we could see wind up on a practice squad or a preseason roster in August. They're laying 6.5 against the Georgia State team. They're not going to a bowl. They beat their rivals, Georgia Southern, a couple weeks ago. They really don't have anything to play for. They're making that crazy trip out to Moscow, Idaho, which is always a tough place for opponents to play. I think Idaho Lane, we're seeing that number come down to 6.5, might even be able to catch a 6th round Saturday morning. So I say lay the points with the Vandals.
How messed up is it that the Sun Belt Conference has Idaho? Like, okay, you're going to tell me that so-and-so can't join the Pac-12, like Boise State can't join the Pac-12, but Idaho can join the Sun Belt with teams like Troy, teams in Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, and New Mexico. That Idaho belongs in that conference, but Boise State can't get into the Pac-12 for what reason, God only knows.
Well, Idaho, and that's the thing. I mean, Idaho, and that's the other key that I've been writing on with the Vandals is this is their last season as a FBS Division 1A member. And it's for that reason. The Sun Belt is basically kicking them out. They are costing the conference. The school's spending way too much money in travel. The conference as a whole is spending too much money. So, can you imagine? The basketball. Well, and that was the thing. Idaho, they want to be in a conference with their basketball and football aligned, so they're going to drop down and go to the Big Sky because that's where they play basketball. But could you imagine if they had to travel for hoops and play, like you said, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, Lafayette, and Monroe? It wouldn't make sense why do it for football.
Or even in girls' tennis or something stupid.
Exactly, right. Whatever it is, right. So the travel has been abysmal. So Idaho, they won't have another chance to play in a bowl game after this. The only time they'll have a postseason from here on out will be in the FCS playoffs, and I think they have a year of transition between that too. So they won't be able to do much of anything next year. So this is the big year. This is the year they go all in. And I think Idaho wins this game, and they're definitely a team I have circled as well. West Virginia and Idaho, both teams I have circled early, so it's a heads up. Come bowl time, those are 2 teams I'll be looking at.
The hillbilly states of the United States. I didn't just say that. Okay. Mountain West Conference Championship. We got Wyoming, which. Nebraska beat Wyoming, and they're playing in their conference championship. Why isn't Nebraska in the conversation for the college football playoff? This is ridiculous. They beat a potential conference champion.
Yeah.
No, Nebraska's losers, and everybody from that state is a loser. But, okay, this is going to be my best bet for the week. I'm going to go San Diego State to cover 7-point spread against Wyoming in the Mountain West Conference Championship. I love the Mountain West. Craig Bolt is doing a great job at Wyoming.
Yeah, he is.
And, this is a team that could potentially be the Boise of the of the non-Power 5 in a couple of years with Craig Bolt. This guy knows what he's doing, and I hope to God Nebraska loses to Wyoming at some point in these next few years for firing Craig Bolt, even though he well deserved it when he was coaching Nebraska's D coordinator. But I'm going to say San Diego State in this spot covers. What is your best bet for the week?
Interesting spot with that game too, the San Diego State Wyoming. These are going to be the two premier teams of the Mountain West Conference, and we mentioned Boise State briefly. If Boise State were to leave for more than likely, if they leave the Mountain West, they're going to go to the Big 12. It seems like I don't know if the Pac-12 would be a move that would be feasible for them based on other sports. But if Boise leaves that conference, these are the top two teams for sure. San Diego State was a team that really they had more traction as being the non Power 5 team to make a run for the playoff. They had just as much traction as Houston did early in the year, and they had way more traction than, say, Navy or Western Michigan. So, and they got Donnell Pumphrey, who's a great running back, talent that even though he's a bit undersized for the NFL, I think he's a guy we still might end up seeing on Sundays. Could be a Darren Sproles type, down the line. So that'll be a fun game to watch. But my best bet, it's Thursday night in the NFL, and this is a client release as well too. So. You guys are getting this one on the house. The Dallas Cowboys, like I said, you're going to lay a bit of a price because it's -3, minus $1.20, maybe even a minus $1.05. But even if you get a 3.5 at a cheap price, I go on and lay the 3.5 in this spot. I think Dallas rolls over Minnesota in this game. I just don't see where Minnesota is going to have the atmosphere and the energy will be there. It's the first Thursday night game at US Bank Stadium. But it's not going to be anything like it was. They're not going to play the kind of game that they played at home at night against the Green Bay Packers early in the year. They're not going to, they're just simply outclassed right now. Their defense is way too banged up to try and stop Dallas's multifaceted offense. And Dallas is getting things tightened up along the lines on defense. They'll definitely be able to stop Minnesota's run game. I mean, who hasn't stopped their run game in the last, couple of weeks? If they're struggling to run the ball against the Bears and the Lions, they're definitely going to have some trouble trying to run against this Cowboy team right now. So 3.5 is a very cheap price. This was a 2-unit play of mine, and it's a game, like I said, jump on it now. This game will probably close around 5.5. I see nothing but Dallas money coming in from the next couple of days as we lead to Thursday. That's my best bet.
Well, before we get out of here, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter? The internet, all that good stuff.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at AXSmithSports. You can get my daily plays at sportsmemo.com. You can get my long-term packages for sale right now. You can get my month of all plays for just $199 at AXSmithSports.com. I've been on a fantastic run in college basketball. The NFL has been great. I've cashed seven of my last 9 in the NFL. College football has been on the roll, and that $199 package, $199 a month, that's every play in December, and that's my entire bowl package included as well. So you'll be getting my college football game of the year included in that. My NFL game of the year hasn't been released yet. That might be coming out within December, and you'll also have my games of the month in college hoops and the NHL as well. So $199 at AXSmithSports.com. I don't know if we're doing a show on 93.7 The Ticket this week with the conference championship games, but definitely check that show out, the Brett Kane Show at Bach, 93.7 The Ticket. I'll have information on there. If I'm on there Friday, that will be posted on my Twitter, so follow me on Twitter at AXSmithSports.
Yeah, they might not because of Nebraska being a loser state right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm sure I'll be on there again to talk about whatever bowl, because Nebraska's going to go to a bowl game.
Yeah. Yeah, so you'll have to be on for like the Holiday Bowl or whatever.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll be talking. I'll be talking bowl games, and we'll probably be talking championship games there too. So expect me to be on there Friday, and which also reminds me I can't get too drunk Thursday when I'm watching the Dallas Minnesota game because might have to do radio. So, but
isn't the show between like 2 and 6 though?
full disclosure, I've actually done one of those shows hungover already.
Okay.
Yeah. So I go on at 3:30 Central Time, but things can get carried away. So yeah, but definitely check out that show on Friday. So.
All right. Yeah, and check out my show that was posted just like an hour ago. Bob Sullivan Show with me and Mark Rohde, who is pre and post game show host for 670 The Score in Chicago for the Chicago Cubs, and Mike Dyer from MikeDyerSports.com in Boston. And on that note, we will be back next Tuesday talking some NFL, previewing some bowl games, and previewing the one, the only, the Army-Navy game here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. Have a good night, and see you later.